Good afternoon, everybody. While I'm speaking, I don't mind being interrupted with questions, so if you have any, please go ahead. Today, I'm talking about essentials of a sound business case, and as you can see, I have an alternative title, How to Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive. Basically, because if you have a good business case, you're not going to be taken advantage of. And that title, Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive, comes from a book, very famous business book, which I highly recommend. So what are we going to do today? I'm going to concentrate on business case essentials for startup medical device companies, which is my area of expertise. But of course, this can be applied to any business at any stage. And I would like to say that doing a business case is a very there's a lot of personal opinions that go into business cases. Nobody does it the same way. Everybody has a different opinion. I'm giving you my opinion. I'm giving you what I look for when I evaluate a business case for a venture capital company or for angel investors. So take what I say with a grain of salt. There are a lot of other opinions out there, but this does come from a lot of experience. So what I'm going to talk about today, what is a business case? Why do you need it? What are the important elements in it? How do you validate your business case, and why is it important to validate your business case? And a question I'm asked a lot, how strong does my business case really have to be, given that I'm a startup and operating by myself, etc.? And then how to organize your business case. Okay, so let's start with what is a business case. It's pretty simple. As you can see in the definition up here, it's a document that justifies the formation or expansion of a business or a project. A business case is not a business plan. It is a high-level view, but it takes elements out of your business plan. So you tend to write the business plan first so that you know what you're talking about, and then you do your business case, which is presented to potential investors. Okay? Once a potential investor is interested, they're going to want to see the full plan. And then I have a quote here that actually comes from the Business Case Guide for Canada. This is how the Canadian government wants you to write a business case when you propose something to the Canadian government. And you can read that on your own. So why do you need a business case? The most important reason is you need it for yourself. Because a business case, if properly done, will tell you if your business is really viable. And this is really important because you are investing a lot of time, a lot of energy, and sometimes a lot of money into this business case. And you want to be certain that you have a very good chance to be successful. And the way to be certain is to spend a lot of time working on the business case, because that will really tell you whether your business is going to be viable. A lot of people start businesses without doing a business case. A lot of people fail. And, you know, as they say, if you're going to fail, fail early. If you're going to fail, fail because you do your business case and it's not strong enough, and you look at it and you say, you know, this is an ugly baby. This isn't going to work. So let's go on to something else. So the primary reason to do a business case is for yourself. The next reason, and very important reason, and this is where the sharks come in, is you're doing a business case for investors. Now, right now, if you're starting up a medical device company, competition for investment is really, really intense. It's intense for two reasons right now. First of all the hospitals, all the universities are pushing out startup companies in tremendous numbers. So there are tremendous numbers of companies that are looking for financing right now. The second reason is For the past 3 years, most investors have kind of shut down. There was the pandemic going, and everybody was keeping their powder dry so that they could keep their existing investments alive. Now that we've come out of COVID, or we're coming out of COVID, all of these companies that stopped looking for money for the past 3 years are looking for money again. So not only are you competing against startups, but you're also competing against companies that are several years old and have progressed farther than you have. So competition is intense. The other reason that you need a strong business case is not only will it get you in the door and dramatically improve your chances of getting that investment, but it also improves your valuation. The stronger a business case you can present, the more likely your pre-money valuation is going to be high, and that way you are giving away less of your company. Okay, hopefully everybody understands that. Now, the most important elements of a business case. I distilled it down to really 4 elements: market potential, financial return, ability to execute, and risk. A lot of people will tell you, there's hundreds of things that can go into a business case, but I'm trying to keep it simple. And if you remember these 4 things, you will build a strong business case. So I'm going to talk them one at a time. Let's start with market potential. And this includes not only the size of the market, but it includes what's known as your value proposition. Your value proposition is, what do you bring to this market? Why will people buy things? And I'm sure you've heard a lot of this before. Does your proposed business solve a real problem? What is the value proposition and why is it compelling? You should be able to state your value proposition in 10 words or less. Otherwise, it's too complicated. Okay, so what's your value proposition? My business will cure cancer. Perfect. Okay, obviously not every business is going to cure cancer, but you should have some way of saying what your value proposition is that is short and concise, and people can see that it will be compelling. Is your business truly disruptive? So are you making a minor improvement, or are you bringing in something that's totally and radically new? Something that makes a minor improvement is tough to sell to investors, because what will the competition do when you bring in this minor improvement? Will they copy you? Will they lower their price? How will they react? If you're bringing in something that's truly disruptive and there is really no competition out there, the chances of this coming back with a huge financial return are much higher. Is the market receptive? Okay. Is the market waiting for something like this? Does the market realize they have a problem? Is your market composed of early adopters, like cardiologists, for example? Or is your market composed of much more conservative physicians, like surgeons, for example? Okay, and concentrate on the US market. I see lots of business plans that talk about the market in Canada. Trust me, nobody cares. The market's in the United States. That's where you have to convince people that you are going to be able to sell. Okay, what about competition? Does your product fit into current workflow? Or will your product force physicians to change the way they do things radically? Is your product or service reimbursed? And is it reimbursed adequately? What's the payback period for a customer? If you're selling a product in the United States that costs $100,000, how long does it take the physician or the clinic to make back that money through reimbursement or other things? And finally, are there sales and distribution channels available? 90% of business plans fail because they don't address market potential and their value proposition adequately. The more time you can spend on this, the better. The final question is this a home run or is it just a single? Again, something that you want to know for yourself and for your investors. Now let's move on to financial return. One of the big questions is, how much financing do you really need? Both to start in the seed phase, but also eventually to get to cash flow neutral. So if you go to an investor and you say, I need $1 million and I'm going to, I'm going to be able to make my prototype or get some preclinical testing done with that $1 million. The next question that investor is going to ask is, well, what happens after that? Is this something that you need $10 million to get to cash flow neutral, or do you need $50 million to get to cash flow neutral? How long will it take you to get to market? This is a critical question because investors want to be paid back. They want to know that they're going to be able to exit or get paid back typically within 5 years. If it's going to take you longer than that to get to market, it means there's more risk. It means that you're going to have a much bigger market, that you're going to have to be thinking much bigger in order to get an adequate financial return. Is there sufficient gross margin? In other words, is there sufficient profit? Will you be able to charge enough money? Okay, and are there any real comparables for an exit? Were there acquisitions in these fields that made people money? Bottom line question here is, what internal rate of return can you generate for investors? Okay, if you don't know what internal rate of return is, you've got some homework to do. You've got to learn more about business and finance. But venture capitalists typically expect about a 30% IRR. So keep that in mind. Okay, moving on. The ability to execute. You not only have to show that you have a big market, you not only have to show that you have a value proposition that is compelling, you not only have to show that you're going to generate a really good financial return, but you have to show that you have the ability to make it all happen. Okay, if somebody gives you this $1 million or $10 million, can you make it happen? Do you have the management experience? Do you have the technical and scientific resources that you need to make the product? Do you have a regulatory plan that makes sense to the investor? Can you manage clinical trials? Can you manage marketing once you get clearance from the regulatory authorities? And very, very important, can you manage the financial aspect of your business? Nobody's going to give you a lot of money without being very certain that you can manage that money effectively. So the bottom line question here is, can you execute your business plan with the financing that is requested? If you have a business plan and you call for $1 million, one of the things the investors are going to say to you is, what milestone can you meet with this $1 million? And if they look at this milestone and they think there's not enough management experience, or we don't believe you can meet the milestone, you're not asking for enough money, they're going to turn and run. Okay, you've got to get enough money to be able to execute your business plan, at least get to the point where you can meet a milestone so that you can raise another round of financing. Okay, now what about risk? When I'm called in to do a due diligence study, one of the main things that I report is I go over every possible risk that this business can face, and I assess every possible risk. This needs to be a big part of your business case, because any risk that is not addressed, that the venture capitalist or the investor finds that you haven't addressed, means they won't trust any other part of your business plan. Okay, you have to spend, again, a lot of time looking at the risks. Now, what risks are we talking about? So, and then after you've identified and assessed your risks, you have to say, how am I going to mitigate those risks? How am I going to make sure that I've done everything I can to manage that risk? And even after you've managed all that risk, you have a residual risk. You have risks that you can't possibly manage. Does the residual risk outweigh the potential returns that you're going to generate? So what risks are we talking about? Here's a list. And you can go through this whole risk, but to start with, scientific risk. Is the science really solid? Are you on the edge of science, not just the edge of technology? Okay, this is a big question. And the technical risk. Are you developing technology that is so far out there that that itself becomes a huge risk? Okay, are you trying to do technology maybe that can't be done? Are you trying to make an MRI machine the size of a wristwatch? That technology does not exist. Okay, regulatory risk is also, it's huge, because the regulatory pathway that you put in your business case, that pathway for risk class 2 or 3 devices determines how much financing you need, determines how long it's going to take you to get to market. And if there is regulatory risk, for example, if you're in a class 2 situation and you have a predicate for a 510K and that predicate is old or is not exactly the same indication for use, you have regulatory risk. Okay, you can look at all the other risks: personnel risk, financial risk, manufacturing risk. Clinical risk is a big one. First of all, will it work? That's a huge risk. And secondly, assuming you get to the point where you have prototypes that you can submit to clinical trials, will you be able to recruit patients fast enough? And how certain are you that you can meet your primary objectives? You have reimbursement risk. You have IP risk. IP risk is another huge one. Investors want to see patents. Okay, why do they want to see patents? Will patents protect you? Not really. But the big companies, they want to buy patents because patents protect big companies. So can you patent your invention? And more importantly, do you have freedom to operate? Is somebody going to come back 3 years from now saying, you can't make that, we have a patent that covers this? Okay, adoption risk. Is your pricing realistic? Will physicians change their workflow? Do physicians really want this product? Okay, and then exit risk. Is there going to be a customer for your company when you're ready to sell it? Okay, and maybe you never want to sell your company. But if you're taking other people's money, if you're taking investment, especially from venture capitalists will tell you right up front, we want to exit in 5 years. That's how venture capitalists stay in business. That's how they make their money. So it's not something you can ignore. Anyway, you have to address all of these risks while you're writing your business case. Okay, let's talk about validation. Validation is something that is almost never talked about when people talk about business cases. But to my mind, validation is the most important part of your business case. In other words, how do you know what you're saying is true? Anybody can make up numbers. And I see made up numbers in business cases all the time. We're going to get 1% of the market in the first year and 3% of the market in the second year. How do you know? we're going to be able to develop this product for $700,000. How do you know? When you come up against these sharks that are patrolling the waters of this, they're going to look at every single assumption you've made. They're going to look at every number, every argument, and they're going to say, how do you know? And you have got to be able to come back with an answer. Because if they find even one where you have made a really questionable assumption or picked a number out of the air, they don't believe anything you tell them anymore. Validation is absolutely key. I can't tell you the number of business plans that I have read where I look at, where they don't supply information about how they validated these things. And you walk away. Take the time to do the most rigorous validation you can. The stronger the validation, the stronger the business case. It's just as simple as that. And when you think you have done enough validation, you've probably just started. Okay, it takes a long time and you got to do it right. So I'm going to spend some time talking about validation. First part of that, so you're going to validate all of the 4 aspects that I talked about before. The first part is market potential and market adoption. You've probably all seen this slide with total addressable market going down to serviceable, obtainable market. To validate total addressable market is relatively easy. There's all kinds of studies that have been done, market reports written by companies. You can get some of them at the library. You can get some of them through Mars. You've got to come up with a credible number for your total addressable market, and you've got to quote what that source is so that the potential investor can go and say, okay, I'm looking that up. I'm going to verify that you've done your homework. Getting down to the serviceable, obtainable market is much more difficult to validate. That's the one where you have to go and talk to all kinds of potential customers. You've got to see what is really available to you in terms of numbers of clinics, numbers of physicians, how many they're going to buy, how many procedures they do, what countries you can sell in, where your regulatory opportunities are, etc. So validating the market, step number 1. How do you do it? First of all, you speak to multiple key opinion leaders, okay? A lot of companies are started by either a single physician or by an engineer who's talking to a single physician. You need to be aware that physicians are very opinionated people. They have every right to be, okay? But they don't always agree with each other. And if you base your business on what a single physician says, you're very likely to fail because you'll get out into the market and the other physicians will disagree with the physician you've been looking to. You've got to talk to at least a dozen key opinion leaders. Okay, another thing that I do all the time is I interview salespeople and distributors because these are the people who are really in touch with multiple customers. So if you have a new type of ECG machine, talk to sales professionals who sell ECG machines. Ask them, what do you think how do you think the customers will react to this? How easy will it be for you to sell it? What kind of pricing should it have? They know, they're out there. You've got to speak to people who are out there, and you've got to be able to quote these people. You've got to be able to use them as references. Is market adoption dependent upon reimbursement, publications in the medical press, clinical trial results, or even inclusion in medical guidelines? There are a lot of products that no doctor is going to use unless it's in the medical guidelines, and it's going to take you 3 to 4 years to get your product into the medical guidelines. There are products, especially in the United States, that doctors will not use unless they are properly reimbursed. Okay, medicine is a business, especially in the United States. And it'll take you 2 to 3 years to get reimbursement at least. Okay, very few doctors will use a new product, a disruptive product, without lots of publications. How are you going to get those publications? How long is it going to take for you to get those publications? You put all of these things into your business case, and people are going to look and say, you know what you're talking about. This is someone I can believe. Okay, but you have got to validate all of that information. I interview purchasing agents, if I can, in the United States. How do you interview a purchasing agent? Well, you're talking to a key opinion leader, say in Boston, and you say to your key opinion leader, could you get me an interview with your purchasing agent? Because purchasing agents think a little bit different than doctors do. Okay? Again, you're trying to find out how quickly will the market adopt this product. And the purchasing agent will say to you, I need to see this and this and this and this. The key opinion leader will say, I need to see this and this and this. And all that has to go into your business case. Okay? Another good validation is to find comparable companies. So again, if you have a new ECG machine, find a company that sells ECG machines that started up a few years ago, especially if they're a public company, and look at their annual reports, see how their sales grew. Then you can say, look, they were able to grow their sales by 60% a year. We think we can do it as well. Okay? And keep validating until you're totally sick of it and until the results become consistent, until you're getting fairly consistent information. It'll never be totally consistent, but until you get the same answers over and over and over again. Okay, are there any questions on validating your business case?
Hello,
Hi.
Harold. This is Sangeeta. So you were mentioning about validation. So as per the slide you presented before this one, I understood that the validation is something where there is a prototype involved. And I'm not sure if IP, you mean to say patent is already done, because when we come for validation in this step, you mentioned that interviewing a salesperson, physicians, or the companies who has done this. So in that case, are we going to disclose what we did? And if yes, then did you mean the validation? I mean, before validation, there will be prototype and already patent file? Because if we are disclosing during that.
Okay, very good question. So before I address the IP situation, let me just spend a couple of minutes talking about validation. Validation has different meanings. There is a validation phase within design control, and you may be referring to that. That is different from what I'm talking about now. What I'm talking about now is validation of your business case. Now, to switch to IP, you should file your provisional patent, your IP, as early as you possibly can, so that you can talk to people in as much detail as you want. If you have not filed a provisional patent and you talk to somebody without a non-disclosure agreement, you cannot give away any technical details, because that will invalidate a future patent. So if you don't have IP filed, if you haven't filed a provisional patent, you can just talk in generalities. You can talk about the market. You can talk about what doctors want. You can talk about where doctors have the pain point. You can kind of beat around the bush. You don't have to say exactly what you're doing, but you can still validate that market. How quickly do these doctors adopt new technologies? How important is reimbursement? How important are scientific papers? Does this kind of technology have to be in the medical guidelines? You can ask all those questions without revealing the technical details of what you're doing. You can reveal, the overall area that you're working in, but if you don't have a patent filed, then you cannot reveal the intimate technical details. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes, Harold, we do have a couple of questions in the chat from Sofiane. The first question is, are purchasing agents the individuals in hospitals responsible for purchasing new equipment, or is it something else? I think is asking if you're referring to the procurement departments at hospitals, or is it someone else?
It's the procurement department in hospitals, and also you can talk to group purchasing organizations.
Like Plexus, for example. Yeah, or
right.
Yeah. So the second question, can you please explain what market adoption curves are and where and how we can get that information? Okay,
so a market adoption curve, classically, there was a book written a long time ago that showed a classic market adoption curve where you have early, nothing, then you have early adopters, then you have late adopters, then you have the peak of the market, and then you have saturation. So that's a market adoption curve. And you have to make an assumption of what the market adoption curve is going to be for your product or service. So you have to start out, okay, we get to the market in 2027. And in 2028, we're going to have 10 customers, 10 early adopters. And these are going to be key opinion leaders and they're early adopters. And then in 2029, those early adopters are going to present at all these conferences. They're going to talk to all their buddies, and we're going to have 40 customers. And you generate that curve of how many customers you're going to have over time. So that's market adoption.
Thank you very much, Harold.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, let's move on. Okay, so we talked about market potential, market adoption, validation of your value proposition, okay, assuming that you have filed your IP. Now, the next thing is validating your financing and your financial return. Okay, one of the best ways to do that is to look again for comparable companies. How much financing did they raise? When did they raise it? How was it tranched? In other words, when was the first raise, second raise, and third raise? And how long did it get them to take to get to market? And if they got acquired, what was the return to investors? If these companies are private, it's very difficult to get that information. But if the company is public, then it's pretty easy because they file annual reports. So if Boston Scientific acquired the company that's comparable to you, Boston Scientific will typically report how much they paid for it. And if you're working with an investor, investors have access to venture capital information that is not public. So sometimes you can ask a venture capitalist that you're looking at, that you're working with, can you look up this company for me and tell me what was the return to investors? Okay, that requires you to get friendly with venture capitalists, and that's not that difficult to do. Okay. As I said before, financing needs to provide enough runway for you to hit a very important value-added milestone. So a milestone could be develop a clinical prototype. A milestone could be get certified to the medical device standard ISO 13485. A milestone could be that you start a clinical trial or you end a clinical trial. Okay, you've got to get enough financing so that your company can exist for long enough that you hit that milestone. But in addition, you have to have enough money left over to, first of all, account for something that goes wrong. And secondly, to carry you through the financing process for the next round. It doesn't do you any good if you raise $1 million and 9 months later you hit the milestone, but you have no money left. When you go out for your second round of financing, you will not get a good valuation because everybody will say, oh, they're desperate, they have no money. So you have to have enough money left over. You have to have a strong enough balance sheet that you can raise the next round. So you need enough money to hit the milestone, account for things to go wrong, and carry you through the financing process for the next round. That's typically about an 18-month runway that you need to raise. Okay, and that's the problem is that you have a company that has a pre-money valuation. Let's say your pre-money valuation is $2 million. And it's going to take you $2 million to last 18 months and allow you to hit the milestone, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you're giving away half your company. That's hard to do. So what people think is, okay, instead of raising $2 million, I'll only raise $1 million. And that way I'm only giving away 1/3 of my company. But the problem is that $1 million is not enough. It doesn't get you where you need to go. You don't hit the milestone. And if you don't hit the milestone, you can't go for your second round. It's basically the valley of death. You have to hit that milestone in order to raise that second round. And you can't be desperate. So raise enough money. Prove to the potential investor, prove within your business case that you are raising enough money by saying, it's going to cost me this much money to do the prototype. How do I know? Well, I've got a third party doing it and they gave me a quote. And I'm going to hire this engineer, and I've already asked the engineer for a design and development plan, and they gave me the design and development plan, and it's available to you to look at, but it's rock solid. Okay, you need to provide 3-year financial projections. I know that's difficult. It's hard to know what's going to happen next month. And looking 3 years ahead is difficult. But that's what's expected. And during those 3 years, you need to offer to show at least quarterly cash flow. You need to show that you are not going to run out of money. Okay, and as I said before, validate every number in your projections: revenues, cost of goods sold, overhead, labor, everything. Validate everything. Okay, validate your ability to execute. This again is a tough one. Most people starting out medical device companies have never done this before. Okay, most of you have spent multiple years being educated. 4 years to become an engineer, another 6 years in graduate school, or another 6 years getting your medical degree and doing your internship. How many years did you spend learning how to be the CEO of a company? It's not that easy. So if you don't have the management experience, an investor is going to look at you and say, how do I know you can do it? Well, there's a few ways to mitigate that. The first is, if you do not have management experience yourself, surround yourself with people who do. Get mentors, befriend people who have done it before. Surround yourself with suppliers who know what they're doing, who have done it before. The more people you have around you who can advise you and who have done it before and who have that experience, the more impressive it is to advisors. and you want to list those people in your business case. Now, if you have a company that is going to produce a Class 3 product that requires a clinical trial that involves thousands of patients and is going to need to raise $100 million before it gets to the point of cash flow neutral, you are going to have a very, very difficult time convincing investors that you will be able to manage that. That's a lot of money, it's a lot of time, and it takes a lot of experience. So what do you do in that case? What you say is, look, I'm going to start this company, but I recognize that I don't have the experience to take this company all the way through to the market. So put right in your business case, we will hire an experienced CEO at this point in our company's life. Okay, it's not an easy thing to admit to yourself. But again, if you want to get this kind of, even if you have something that is going to cure cancer, if you can't validate the ability to execute, you're not going to get the investment. Okay, compare the tasks in your plan with the expertise that you've recruited. Make sure that everything matches. Make sure that you are not paying people to learn. You want people who have done it before, who know what they're doing. If you are designing a new ECG machine, you want an engineer who's designed ECG machines for big companies. If you are going to need a medium-sized clinical trial, have a clinical trial manager who has conducted 4 or 5 clinical trials before. Okay? Don't pay people to learn. And same with your suppliers. If you need a new type of laser for your equipment, don't go to a company that has never actually developed a laser before, even if they're really good at other things. Okay, it doesn't cut it. Okay, another way to validate your ability to execute is to validate your regulatory plan. And the best way to do that is a pre-submission meeting with the FDA. Pre-submission meetings with FDA have minutes. You can show those minutes to an investor, and you can say, the FDA agrees with the size of my clinical trial. The FDA agrees with my classification, or the FDA agrees with my predicate device. All of these things bring comfort to investors that you have done your homework. And if you are going to need a clinical trial, find a PI, usually one of the KOLs that you have recruited before. Validate the ability of that PI to recruit patients. You want a PI who has done clinical trials before. Again, you don't want to pay anybody to learn. You want a PI who can show you that during the clinical trials that they conducted before, they were able to meet their recruitment targets. Okay, you put all of that validation evidence in your business case, you are far more likely to get somebody's attention. Okay, how do you validate risk? Again, this takes a long time, but you take that list of risks that I presented before and you validate each one of them. So, for example, is there scientific risk? Well, go into the medical literature. Go into the scientific literature. If you're developing a laser, a picosecond laser to do something, are there picosecond lasers that are being used in other industries? Talk to experts in picosecond lasers. Get them to write you a letter saying, we can do this. It is scientifically possible to do it. The best way to validate technical risk is to demonstrate proof of concept. In other words, build a prototype that shows that this thing works. I've worked for a number of companies, and I get in there and they're all excited. We've got a solution to this. And I say, show me your proof of concept. And they don't have it. They have developed a prototype at 1/10 the power, or they've done something that will work on mice. They have no idea whether it'll work on humans. They have no idea how much power it will take to really get the clinical job done. Okay, you have got to demonstrate proof of concept of technology. Okay, that is the way, that's what you want in your business case. We have done something that showed that this technology is feasible, that we can build it at a reasonable cost. Okay, how do you validate regulatory risk? As I said before, pre-submission meeting. For financial risk, I always advise people to have a best, worst, and realistic projection, and to do a sensitivity analysis. What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? How does it affect my financing? Clinical risk, if you can run a small safety trial that shows that your device is safe, or if you can do a preclinical efficacy experiment to show that your device is likely to work, that's great clinical risk validation. Okay, IP risk, talk to a patent attorney. Talk to them about, is my device potentially patentable? Do some freedom to operate looking around. The biggest one, in my opinion, is adoption risk. If you can find some customers that are willing to tell investors, and these can be your KOLs. If your KOL says, look, I love this thing. As soon as it's out there, I can't wait for it to be out there. As soon as it's out there, my hospital is going to buy it, and we're willing to pay $2,000 each for it. If you can get a few of those, that's validation of adoption. Okay, and exit risk. There's nothing wrong once you have filed your patents, going to a medical conference, walking into Medtronic's booth saying, is your business development manager here? And talk to them about what you're doing. And say, what would it take for you to acquire this company? What kind of evidence would it take? And that goes right into your business case. I talked to Medtronic. Medtronic said, if we can show 90% sensitivity, they'll acquire us. Okay, so there's a lot of work to do. The next real question is, how strong does my business case have to be? Okay, how much of this work do I really have to do? Now you'll notice this graph starts out at strong. Your business case has to be strong, even if you're right out of the gate. And as you progress, it has to go up to bulletproof. It has to address everything. So here's my slide of how you decide how strong your business case is. The first thing is the stage of the business. Your pre-seed, if you're pre-seed, there can be some gaps in your business case. Everybody has some gaps in their business case at that level. Okay, not too much. It still has to be strong. But if your business is commercial, if you're selling product and you're looking for a final financing to expand your product line, your business case has to be bulletproof. Okay, same with financing required. If you're looking for a relatively small amount of money, strong business case will work. More than $20 million, bulletproof. For IP, I would not start looking for financing without submitting a provisional patent. Okay? If, on the other hand, you're at the commercial stage, you better have multiple issued patents. Okay? Management, we talked about that before. A strong business case, you don't have much experience, but you're surrounded by experience. Okay? A bulletproof business case, you have a serial entrepreneur who's had multiple exits. Okay? What would you rather invest in? Would you rather invest in someone right out of school doing it all by themselves? Or would you rather invest in a CEO who started 4 different companies and sold each one of them for more than $100 million? Who is more likely to be successful with this product? Regulatory risk. If you have a clear predicate or you've done a pre-submission meeting, you have addressed regulatory risk strongly. Bulletproof, you need FDA clearance. Okay, other risk factors, you've got to identify them, you've got to validate them. To be bulletproof, you have to fully mitigate all risks. Okay, and for market adoption, again, a strong business case is a confirmed intention to buy. A bulletproof business case is you have a sales ramp. You are on that adoption curve and it's going according to plan. Okay, any questions about this before I go on? Ahmed, is there anything in the chat?
Yes, there is one question, Harold. I think the question is from Zaya. Even if there is a patent is granted before FDA approval, if I talk to the big companies who are selling similar products, should I worry about inspiring their R&D team? Are they going to, like, they might avoid my patents and develop something similar and launch to the market earlier than me?
Yeah, again, very good question. In general, the big companies would rather acquire technology than develop it. In general, not always. You're in the situation where if you don't show anybody what you're doing, so if you come and say, I've got something inside here, but I'm not going to show it to you, how are they going to invest in that? Okay, there is risk in exposing your idea to other companies. You have to look at, I mean, if you go to Philips or Siemens and they're working, and you know they're working on the same thing, well, you don't want to go to them until you're almost ready to hit the market. If, on the other hand, you have something that's truly disruptive that you know nobody else is working on because you've looked at patents, you've looked at papers, then you can go to them fairly early. As I said, big companies in general, they'd rather acquire technology than develop it themselves. It costs them a lot of money to develop it themselves. And in general, they can make a huge amount of money by acquiring technology that helps them sell other products. So, and big companies are always looking for little companies to acquire, but it is a judgment call. It depends how different it is. I had a situation with Siemens at one time where I was consulting to a company and they had a product and it wasn't that disruptive, but Siemens copied it. They copied it even though this company had patents. I went to Philips with an idea once, and Philips got an idea, a slightly different idea, while I was talking to them, and within a week they had filed a provisional patent on this idea that they had had. So yes, there is a risk, but at the same time, if you go to a big company like, for example, Medtronic, and they're not working on something similar to this, they could be your lead investor. And they do that all the time. All of the big companies have venture capital arms, and they will invest in things that they think maybe they will be able to acquire once it has gotten to a certain point. So they're all looking. It just depends on how disruptive and how different your technology is.
Thank you very much, Harold. I do have another question. Sorry.
Yep.
Well, so when you say an investor, are you referring to VCs, angels, or like institutional investors? Does it matter? I guess my question is whether there are special considerations in the business case that depend on the type of investors you're pitching to.
Yes. So in general, not everybody, but in general, you can pitch angel investors and you can be stronger on the medical benefit that you're bringing, because a lot of angel investors are out there not just to make money, but to do good for the world. And more power to them. That's wonderful. So you concentrate on that. When you go to venture capitalists, their concentration is purely financial. So you concentrate on the financial aspects. You talk about the companies in this field that have been acquired for $1 billion. You talk about the IRR that you can generate. You talk about how fast you're going to get to market and how low the risk is. And that's what venture capitalists are interested in. The strategic companies, the big companies, they're interested more in the synergy that you bring to them. So, for example, if you have a company that has a CT scanner and you come to them and you say, we're developing a new X-ray generator that will potentially make your CT scanner have lower radiation and be faster. Well, they're going to look and say, not only can this company generate money on its own, but it'll help us sell more CT scanners. And we make a lot of money on CT scanners. So they're looking for synergy. They're looking for things that are going to help them sell more of their product as well as selling your product.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So business case organization, I've listed what I think a good organization is. You always start with an executive summary, but you write it last. You make sure that you've written everything else so you know what to put in there. And then you lead with the need, no matter whether you're talking to venture capitalists or strategic companies or angels. The market need is what you start with, what you're doing, why you're there, what your value proposition is. Okay, then you talk about your solution. And again, how much you talk about your solution is going to depend on whether you filed your IP. You're going to talk about the market. You're going to talk about management and your KOL team. Okay, and then development plan, regulatory plan, clinical pathway, all of these things that demonstrate that you are able to get this done with the amount of money that you're asking for. Okay, then IP, what you have filed, what it covers, what the claims are, and why you believe you have freedom to operate. Okay, every business case needs a Gantt chart showing milestones and financings, all the way to getting to market. And then, as I said, financial projections, at least 1 year of monthly cash flow, 3 years of quarterly cash flow, P&Ls, balance sheets, all the way out to positive EBITDA, to basically to cash flow neutral. Okay, and I think that's it. Yes, that's it. Thank you. So any more questions, either about business case organization or about anything that I've talked about?
Thank you very much, Harold. This was such an outstanding and insightful presentation, as always, on the key elements that innovators should consider on the business, putting together a business case, and about validation and validating the information backing up the business case. I think we had a question in the chat. Yes, from Stephanie. Would a medical technology, not-for-profit or charity share the business case when approaching donors for financial partnership?
The answer is yes. Even if you're not for profit, donors want to know that you have the ability to execute. Donors want to know that you're raising enough money. Donors want to know that you're addressing a significant market need. Okay, so the answer is absolutely, you need a business case even if you're a charity.
And so it would be presented in the exact same way that you laid out?
There may be some differences. You might not need a section on IP, for example. Okay. But most of the other stuff, is pretty close. I mean, what you want if you're a charity, you want to demonstrate, I mean, you don't have to demonstrate clinical pathway or regulatory, but you have to demonstrate that you can get to the people that you're out there to serve, that you can make a difference to those people. And you need to validate that. You need to validate that what you're offering is going to make a difference in their lives. Okay. And again, you can do that, you know, you can just have a test marketing area to, you know, try it out with a dozen people, see if it works. If you're providing food to Syria, you know, demonstrate that you're going to be able to get it there, that you're going to be able to get it through the border, that you're going to be able to distribute it properly. You've got to demonstrate in your business case that you're addressing a need, that it's real, that you have the ability to execute your business plan. And that's what donors want to see. Donors want to know that they're not throwing their money away, that what they're giving you is really going to result in something, is really going to work. So do you have the management experience to do it? Are you surrounded by enough experts to help you do it? Same basic idea.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding, you mentioned about in the beginning to approaching physician or sales rep or something when you are just writing a business plan and you don't have any IP. So in that time, in the beginning, like other than going to conference or networking events, what are the other best ways to approach with the physician? Because as per my personal experience, I feel that everybody is busy in their own thing. So it is hard to connect. And so what do you suggest, like what's the best way to approach them?
Well, conferences are wonderful. And if you can get yourself to a conference, to give you a story, I was consulting to a company in Minneapolis, and they did not have enough KOLs. And I was going to a conference the next week, and I went and listened to someone who was talking about the same subject. And I just waited for them to finish speaking, and I approached them afterwards, and I said, we are doing this and this and this in this subject. And he said, wow, that's great. I said, will you be our advisor? He said, absolutely. It was that easy. Okay. Look at the medical literature, approach people who have written papers in the area that you're dealing with, and network like crazy. If you find one person, say, do you have 10 friends I can go to? Who else would you suggest? Network like crazy. And the more you can network, the more you can build that spider web of people referring you to other people. That is the best way to find your KOLs and get advisors for yourself. Okay, and in terms of sales, again, going to conferences, walking into a booth when it's not busy, very important. If it's busy, they want to talk to customers, but when it's not busy, go in, look at one of the salespeople who looks like, you know, they have a little gray hair and they know their stuff. Talk to them about it. See what they have to say. Salesmen are usually really happy to talk to people about new stuff because they're always looking for their next thing. For, you know, if they find that you have something that they really want, they might sell. I'd love to sell this for you. And then you say, great, write me a marketing plan. I'll put it in my business case, right? We're all shy in our personal lives. In our business lives, you have to be aggressive. You have to get out there. You have to network like crazy. You have to ask people for help. You'll be amazed. I mean, there are some people who will say, you know, go away, kid, you're bothering me. But there's a lot of people who love to help people. And there's a lot of people who, I mean, we're very fortunate that we're in the medical device business, because most of the people in the medical device business aren't just there for the money. Most of the people are there because they really want to help people. And if you come up to them and say, I've got this new thing, looking for advice as to whether this is going to sell, they'll talk to you. As I said, don't go in when the booth is busy, and you know, don't be put off by 3 or 4 rejections in a row. Keep trying, keep going for it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Harold. Sorry, any last final questions?
No?
Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody. You've been a great audience and you asked great questions, and good luck out there.